and welcome back. This is part 2 of Intro to Web Design with Bootstrap. Right now, we're going to look at the options that Bootstrap gives us to make grids. You can see that they section things up based on what device will be viewing the web application. We have extra small devices like phones, small devices like tablets, medium devices such as desktops, and larger desktop devices. Then these are all sectioned off by grid behavior, max container width, class prefix, number of columns, max column width, gutter width, nestable, offsets, and column ordering. Really quickly, what that all means is grid behavior is simply how does this grid function? When it's really small, everything's going to be stacked horizontally because there's just no room to the left or right. But as we get bigger and wider, there's larger breakpoints. So you'll see that our content will start to spread out as opposed to just being stacked. Max container width, that's a specific pixel value. That means we cannot have a container over this width. And then we have these specific class prefixes that you should use. So we have extra small columns, medium, and large. And then the number of columns for all these devices is just 12, which is super easy and convenient. Also for your max column width on extra small devices, you won't have to worry about it. It will be taken care of with auto. Then after the number of columns, we have our max column width, which is how big a column can be per device. We have our gutter width, which is all the same for every device. And then these last things, are our items nestable? Yes. Do our items have offsets? Yes. And is there column ordering? Yes. So here we can look at a grid layout. This is a fantastic visual representation of exactly what your divs or whatever elements you use will look in the grid. That top one, it takes 12 spaces. The second one is 2 columns taking 6 spaces. Because remember, we have a 12 column row for everything. So you'll see the division. We have 3 made of 4. We have 6 made of 2. And then you can even change size. They don't have to be the same size all around. You could have 1 4 and 1 8. How should we write pages using a grid? This can get confusing, but the more you work with it, the easier it'll be to understand and read. First, we see that we have a little note. Every row must have 12 columns. We just saw that in the above example. We're going to start with a div. The class name of this div is row, and it's going to be really important that we're using class names here and not IDs. Remember, IDs are attributes of specific elements. Class names are for more general grouping. So inside of our div with the class name row, we're going to start organizing our content. We're going to make a div with the class name col mid 4. So this is going to take 4 spaces up out of our 12. We need to put 8 more columns within this, but we'll get there. So Bootstrap 3 has a responsive grid, and these are some maximum sizes. Just to keep in mind, you'll never be able to make a grid bigger than this. For our extra small, grids have no maximum size. They're completely fluid. Small grids are going to resize up to 750 pixels. Medium are going to resize up to 970 pixels. And large are going to resize up to 1170 pixels. So for desktop, you're going to go for mid or large. And now we're going to look at some grid examples. What do Bootstrap grids even look like? Well, we can start getting into the examples. The first one that we'll use is called stacked to horizontal. It's going to give us 2 columns. So first we start with a div. The div will have a class name container. Inside of this container, we're going to have a second div. This div will be called row. Inside of the div called row, we will create 2 more divs. Both will be called col-md-6, meaning these are columns that take up 6 spaces each, totaling 12. Inside of each div, you'll see 2 different p tags or paragraph tags. So if we were to put this code into our HTML page and render it onto a web page, it'll look like this. Now this is a very basic way to get started and get building. The class name container is specifically used in Bootstrap, so that will give you automatic centering and maximum width for your layout. Then after you create a container for everything, you should think about how you actually want to display your information. Every row in the grid is made up of 12 units, so as long as what you're making equals 12, you can have it in there. We did 6 plus 6, but you could do 6 units of 2, you could do 3, 3, 4, and 2. Your possibilities are finite, but you have a couple. Now let's look at some styling that's better suited for medium and large device sizes. We're going to use 2 divs and give them a 50-50 split at the medium viewport. So we start as we did before with a container class, and we're going to define our row. Our divs are going to be a little bit different. We're going to give it the col medium 6, but also col large 4. And another example, we could work on mobile, tablet, and desktop. It's going to give us 3 different column layouts. On a phone, container will be 25% to the left and 75% to the right. On a tablet, it'll be 50-50, and on a large viewpoint, it'll be 33-63, just like we saw above. This is what responsive layouts are. And you see, you put just right in there accounting for everything. You have your column small 9 and your column small 3, still column medium 6, and still column large 8 and 4. And here's another example using 2 different grid sizes to represent different screen sizes. And that's the end for part 2. Pretty simple, pretty easy. Sometimes grids can get a little confusing, but once we start populating data into them, it's a breeze. Thank you so much, and I will see you in part 3.